The only things that people know about you is what you convince them to be true. How do you kind of put that into practice as a sort of life philosophy? Is that a life philosophy?
Yeah, I guess so. Because I feel as though I've always felt like I had some kind of permission to be special, to be significant. And that comes from my mum. She definitely instilled that in me, like so much earlier than I recognized. Like I remember she used to tell me when I started high school, she was like, look, you're going to come across a lot of people who don't know you, who might not like you, and that's okay. But if anybody's mean to you, you tell them that you're my daughter, and they can't say those things to you. And so what would I do if someone was mean to me? Well, my mum told me that you can't say those things to me because I'm special. Lo and behold, it works.
I'm astonished that flew in an Australian high school just quietly. But
it worked. And even things like...
Must have been the delivery.
It must have been. And even things like, you know, I remember I used to really hate my gap tooth, and she was like, no, it's really great. Like, you can't get it close. No, you're not getting braces. But she went out of her way to go to the dentist and get a gap drilled into her tooth because she's like, you are so special. I'd want to be just like you if I was your age. So, like, if this is like the rhetoric that's orbiting around my mind, I just feel like the rest of the world had to catch up. Like, of course I could walk into a space and say, I would love to work here. Of course I would decide that I too can be an influencer. I'm interesting. Of course, like, it all made sense to me. And so I try and remind myself that so much of the insecurity I might have to not feel worthy enough to do things is completely eliminated when I recognize that, like, I know a ton of people who are perceived as being really great and actually really terrible at what they do. Or I know a ton of people who are perceived to be super talented, but they're only talented due to the people they keep around them.
And the converse of that is all the people that you know who are amazing,
exactly,
but don't have any capacity to tell people about that.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So, having started working in the sex industry, you'd been a sex worker for a couple of years.
Yeah.
But you hadn't really gotten into activism in those early years, had you?
Yeah.
So there was a turning point in around 215 where Mamma Mia website posted an article about Pretty Woman, the movie, that argued that sex work was basically harmful and bad.
Yeah.
And you responded to that. Could you tell me about that?
Yeah, I responded to that because it was just so ridiculous. So basically they had like this photo of Julia Roberts and they were like, well, firstly they were saying Pretty Woman enticed people into industry. I don't really think it does. It doesn't present sex work in a great way. But they had this photo of like Julia Roberts like smiling and they were like, sex work isn't this, smiling photo of Julia Roberts. It's actually this woman. And they had this woman who was like obviously had been, very distressed, looked like she'd been beaten up, like lying in a gutter. And I just responded saying, sex work is neither of those things, like it's actually, there's a myriad of different stories in sex work and most people exist somewhere in between those. And I hashtagged it and I posted a photo of myself to be like, like I'm a sex worker and I exist somewhere in between. And I hashtagged it Faces of Prostitution and that went viral. So like I got, a lot of media attention at the time and was basically thrust inadvertently into activism because I was suddenly being asked all this stuff and I was like, well, firstly I'd been outed internationally under my real name because I'd outed myself but I hadn't expected it to go viral. So like and I think a lot of the media assumed that Tilly Lawless was a fake name or like a performer's name because Lawless is an unusual last name. So I think without question people just like put my name everywhere. And so I was like, oh, well, like, now there's kind of no going back. Like everyone knows I do sex work and I should probably like utilize the position I have, which is being able to speak about these things without risk of being outed because the worst has already happened, and also utilize the skills I have, like I am articulate and I can, generally speak about things in like a way that appeals to people. But mainly it was just like I'm in a position that so many other sex workers can't be in because, they can't say openly what they do about their work because they're worried about losing family members or worried about having their children taken off them or worried about losing their normal job. And I was like, oh, well, I have none of those things. So I was like, I guess I actually kind of felt like a sort of like grave responsibility to just go with it and do what I could.
When I was preparing for this interview, I watched an interview from 1999 that you did with Howard Stern.
Oh man.
I couldn't believe how gross he was. He talked the whole time about, all he could talk about in the movies was the fact that you'd done a nude scene.
Oh, right.
He was obsessed with the fact that you'd been dating women after the end of your marriage. He was so, and that isn't that long ago. It's 20 years ago? Maybe it is long ago. But I wonder whether those sorts of incredibly skeezy, sexist, objectifying attitudes was something that you encountered a lot as a kind of, actress in your 20s, or do you remember that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Howard Stern, at the time, everyone knew what he was like. And when I got the offer to do that interview, I remember my mother and my brother and I don't know who else, someone else said, don't do it. You know what he's like. And I knew what he was like. And I became more of a fan. I became a fan of his after that. I knew who he was, but I wanted to do it because I wanted to stand in the, face of that and diffuse it. Kind of like almost when you get pulled over by a cop, and if you have a certain energy about you, it diffuses it. And it didn't diffuse it, but it wasn't like I was doing a magic spell, but I didn't want to say, how dare you, and be ruffled, because I knew what he was gonna do. But I just wanted to sort of normalize that stuff and be a kind of represent that you could be an intelligent, young, pretty woman and have someone try to sexualize you and it not work.
You've said that life is long. Do you feel like you have time to do everything you want to do?
No. I'm scared. I'm so scared. And a lot of, I think, my mania to try and do everything is I feel like I wasted a lot of time drinking and didn't achieve things that I should have or could have. So I really want to try and do as much as I can before my time runs out. But that said, I was in bed last night. 2 of my children climbed in with me. My stinky, hairy husband was there as well. And I really felt like I am so rich. This is genuine love. I'm literally smothered in love. Wow. And then I'd got home from signing copies of my book. I had a really fun day of work ahead of me today, and I just felt so lucky. So I feel like, I want to do so much, but I also need to just remember to go, this is actually glorious.